Hi, everybody, and welcome to County Talk, boring but important. And as you know, this is where we talk about the nitty gritty things that go on with Montrose County. We want you, the taxpayer, to understand kind of all the services that we offer at the county. So we're going to dive into something that you, of course, would be concerned about. We're going to talk about food safety. And I'm here. I'm Sue Hansen. I'm one of your 3 elected county commissioners. And I'm here with Gina Simpson, who is our environmental health specialist. So Gina is the one that's out beating the streets, talking to our restaurant owners, making sure they're safe. And I think this is a topic we're all going to be interested in because I think we hear about it in the news all the time, different things that happen with food. So first, tell me a little bit about restaurant inspections and what you look for and kind of what that role is. And then we'll talk a little bit about your background and how you got to this.
Okay. So it's important that we prevent foodborne illness. And so as a health inspector, I go out. Many people think that I only look at the cleanliness of a restaurant. And when I walk in, usually everybody starts cleaning. Yes.
Here's Gina.
But in reality, that really can't cause a foodborne illness. A dirty floor can't make somebody sick.
Okay.
Of course, cleanliness is definitely important. However, it's those 5 risk factors that can cause a foodborne illness. Cross-contamination, so raw meat
Right.
to
Okay.
lettuce, let's say.
Okay.
Food coming from an unapproved source. Cook temperatures, so you're not killing those pathogens, not cooking that pork to the right temperature, internal temperature, holding temperatures, being hot or cold, and poor hygienic practices. So when I go in, I look for those things, and I think the hardest part to see is those dynamic violations. If people are washing their hands, when they're wearing gloves, are they touching their face and then going back and making your sandwich? That sort of thing.
So you really have to be aware because, when I'm in my house, I'm just cooking and things like that. I always worry about chicken. That's my big pet,
Yes.
chicken.
Yes.
But I'm not always thinking about if I were working in a restaurant that somebody else is going to be eating this food. And so you have to be so careful. So you go to the restroom, do you wash your hands? So those 5 indicators, that's what you're primarily looking for.
Correct.
When you go in. But so I'm a restaurant. How often do you go into if I'm a restaurant owner, how often do I get to see Gina?
So that's not an easy answer. So it depends on risk. It depends on if they're catering or they're doing a lot of food where they're reheating and chilling food, and if they're doing just like a coffee shop, they have a coffee shop, and they're just serving coffee and warming up sandwiches. So that restaurant can be inspected twice a year.
Okay.
However, if they have a bad inspection, we have to go back and do a re-inspection.
Okay.
Or another re-inspection.
Okay.
Or another re-inspection.
But your goal is to help the restaurant owners, not to penalize them, right? But we want to be safe.
It's not all about enforcement. It's about educating.
Okay.
And that's my priority. You want to make sure you're communicating with that manager, with the employees, so they're not making the mistake. You're not just writing the violation and saying,
Bad,
not going to
bad.
tell you what the problem is and how to fix it.
Yeah, I love that approach, and I think that's why people love you, because I've gone into restaurants and when people know I'm at the county, they'll say, "Oh, Gina comes in." Yeah, so I think people do like you. So I'm going to test you. So we have a couple of pictures here. Where are the violations there?
So as you see, the food is ready to be given to the customer, and he's touching the food with his bare hands.
Okay.
So he can have something nasty under his fingernails or on his fingers. So he needs to be wearing gloves, or he needs to be using tongs or a utensil. So no bare hand contact with that ready-to-eat food.
Okay. I've actually been in restaurants where I've seen people that have gloves, but they are doing multiple things. And just because you have gloves on doesn't mean that it's safe, right? I mean, like if you touch something contaminated, you have to take the gloves off, right?
I love that you say that. That is something very common that I see. They think they're invincible because they have the gloves and they can touch anything. And they're not changing their gloves when they change a task. So if I'm preparing a sandwich and I go and I clean a surface, I have chemical on those gloves. and I need to take that off, wash my hands, put on a pair of clean gloves when I go back and finish preparing that sandwich.
It's a lot of responsibility I would be just horrified if I was a restaurant owner and someone got sick. I've even thought about that at your own house. If something happened, you'd feel terrible that you made people sick. What's the violation over here? Besides a flame and no fire extinguisher, I don't know. Like the gloves? Would the gloves be a problem?
No, the gloves wouldn't be an issue. I wouldn't say that's a violation. You would want to make sure you had a ventilation hood and fire suppression. That's a fire department thing. But so I would look at making sure that vent hood was clean.
Okay.
So if they did have a fire, that fire suppression would work. And not be clogged up by grease.
Right. And start another fire.
Fire.
This is a really important job. I hope you feel like you're really providing a valuable service, because that means that, I'm assured that in Montrose, that when I go into a restaurant, that I'm going to be, fairly certain that things are going to have been inspected, that you've been there, they've passed or they haven't passed. And if they haven't passed, that you're following up with them. So to make sure that they're safe, right?
That's true.
Which I'm sure stuff still can happen. But it doesn't happen very often, does it?
Where I have to go back several times. It can happen. A closure can happen also. So we score a restaurant. Every violation has a number attached to it. 0 to 49 is passing. 50 to 109 is reinspection. And then 110 above is closure. And you could also have an imminent health hazard, pest infestation. You can have no hot water.
Right.
So you can't wash your hands properly, excuse me, or clean the equipment properly. So unfortunately, we have lots of re-inspections, and we've had a few closures lately too.
So do you have to, does the hot water have to be like, it has to be such a temperature, or so that's something you would test as well?
Yes. So we just adopted the 2022 food code. And it used to be 100 degrees that the hand washing hot water needed to be at. And now it's 85. So it's more about the procedure and washing your hands, scrubbing your hands, getting in your fingernails, back of your hands.
Right.
And not drying your hands on your clothes.
Right.
Using paper towel. And not closing that faucet with your bare hands again, because you've just contaminated them. So,
gosh, I'm going to go home. I'm going to be touching the faucets like that. So, and it must be also, I think about what a restaurant owner has to deal with just in keeping a restaurant open and ready. I thought about this during COVID too, but they really have to educate their people, and they have to continue to re-educate, because if they have high turnover, then they're always doing education, right?
Always.
Or do you have
constantly
things that you give them so that they can understand?
Yes.
Okay.
I have always food safety signs with me. I learned by pictures myself. Right. And so having those pictures, and then many times when I go in, they know the answers to my questions, but they get nervous. So I say, have these signs, post them. When you're nervous, you may forget.
Right.
And so have that, or you just don't remember some. You may be having a bad day. Have those signs posted so you can, okay, I need to cook this steak to a certain temperature. Right. Or I need to have this hot hold chili at a certain temperature.
Right. So how did you get into this? And then I want to get back to Thanksgiving dinner, because I want to tell you how long my parents used to keep their food out. I probably had foodborne illness when I was a kid, but how did you get into this? What's your background?
So I have a double bachelor's degree in chemistry and biology. When I graduated, I worked for an oilfield chemical company in Denver. Then I worked at environmental laboratories, and then I moved here. I worked in a little laboratory, and then I did not work for many years. And then I was bored. And a friend of mine was working for the county and said, hey, they have this opening. Why don't you apply?
And that's all she wrote,
and 16 years later.
Wow. So we're so lucky to have you. I mean, it's great to have someone who has your philosophy. I think if we had somebody that was punitive, and I think even just the word inspector, health inspector, it's like, what is she going to do to me? So I'm really pleased that you take the approach you do.
I truly believe to show everyone respect, no matter what your position is in the kitchen.
Right.
Because that's the way I would want to be treated.
You bet.
With respect.
Yeah.
And so I always think of that. If someone was coming into my kitchen, how would I want them to treat me?
And I always think about just how hard it is to be in the restaurant business. I mean, I was a waitress, and so, I saw some interesting things, probably some violations. Food trucks are the latest.
Food
So
trucks.
what are your challenges with that? Tell us a little bit about what your experiences are.
I tell you, people just go out and they buy a food truck. They don't realize all that you need for the menu that you are providing to the customer. So now the fire department, they passed where you have to have fire suppression in your food truck if you're producing any grease. So that's a big one. So many people have bought a food truck from another county or another state, and they don't have that fire suppression. And so that can cost thousands of dollars. So we ask, please, if you're even thinking about buying a food truck, come to me, come to the fire department, go to the city clerk.
Yeah, I wonder how we can help people understand that. I mean, I'm sure that people think this is a quick and easy way for me to get into the restaurant business, and I make great, I don't know, empanadas, and then the next thing I know, they have to spend money for something they didn't think they needed. Interesting. Well, that's cool. So, I mean, are you seeing more violations with food trucks, or tell us about what's interesting about inspecting food trucks?
Food trucks are like a rolling restaurant. They have limited space. And to store all your food properly in the refrigeration, especially in the summertime, it gets really hot. And those refrigerators, they don't stand up to heat very well. And so we have problems with cold holding temps. You can't prepare food in your home. So you can't be cooking that food and then put in your food truck.
Oh,
so
it has to be cooked in the food truck.
It has to be in the food truck, or they have to rent a commissary.
Okay.
We're very fortunate now. We have MATA, and we have Region 10 in Olathe.
Right. So they have access to a commercial kitchen. So I know that Olathe has 5 or 6. I don't know if they're all food truck, but people that are baking and making food. I know we have some Nepalese food that they are cooking there. Yeah, I've heard it's really great. You should have brought some samples. Oh, right. We could have just been eating and talking while we're just sitting here. So so food trucks would be. And is there a violation with this woman?
So as long as she's just she didn't prepare the food, she's just handling it from the bottom. She's not touching the food. No. Her hair probably should be pulled back. Yeah. Some kind of hair restraint there.
But we don't have to wear the old cafeteria lady when we were kids in elementary school where they had so that's good.
Some restaurants require that though.
Oh, do they? It's not really cute.
No.
It's hard to be cute and wear a hairnet.
Yes.
So your background as a chemist, that gives you a lot of information about, sort of insight into some foodborne illnesses. Yes. I remember as a kid that my mom would always cook Thanksgiving dinner. It was like midday. And then, as I recall, that turkey sat out because we ate midday. Yes. And then, of course, we had to eat again. And I don't remember her like putting everything in saran wrap and putting it in the refrigerator. So how vulnerable were we to be ill?
Very.
Okay. Thanks, Mom.
So maybe people think that, maybe I got the flu and it wasn't a foodborne illness. But after 4 hours and keeping food out, you can grow microorganisms, pathogens that are in the food. And so really you want to put that food away. However, we don't think about chilling it first. So many times we put it in a container with the lid on it and it's hot. And really you have to cool it down before you put it. Just recently I had someone call and say, I think I got sick at this restaurant. And I said, okay, I'll investigate that. Sure enough, they had a big pot of food. It had been in there for 2 days. So temperatures of refrigerators need to be at 41 degrees or less. That food had been in there for 2 days and it was still in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So microorganisms, bacteria, everything growing. And so.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
Yes, so you would want to make sure you cooled everything down before you did that. So from now on, Thanksgiving dinner, eat, wrap it up, make sure it's cool, and
Yeah.
then put it in the refrigerator.
So do you want to know the time and temperatures?
You can tell me that later.
Okay.
I want to make sure that because I think sometimes you go into salad bars and sometimes things look really creepy, and I mean that to me that's a danger right there.
Can be.
So you'd have to be
Definitely can
really
be.
fastidious if you're a restaurant owner to make sure you took
You
care.
would want it to, definitely monitor it. Make sure somebody's not tasting the food and putting the spoon back and dropping the silverware on the floor and then putting it back in.
So the 3-second rule can't operate.
No.
Okay. So the things we do at home, I mean, I don't think we realize how at risk we are for even some of those foodborne illnesses that you're talking about. But when you're at a public restaurant, you really have high expectations, right?
You really do.
There's a lot of trust when I go out to a restaurant. I'm not looking in their kitchen to see if they're clean. But I trust that they're doing the right thing. And I think that, would you say that most restaurant owners, they seek to do the right thing?
I believe so. I think most of our restaurants here in Montrose County try to do the best. I think you mentioned about employees and their turnover. That's been real difficult since COVID, keeping employees.
Right.
And so I think that's the biggest issue, is that training and educating. But I think the majority of our counties do a pretty good job.
Yeah, well, we feel safe with you at the helm of this effort. So if I'm interested in finding out about a restaurant and the safety, what do I do? Tell me where I go.
So you can go to CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment website, and look under Food Safety and Licensing.
Okay.
And then once you click on that, go to the left side. Under Retail Food, you'll see Inspections.
So it's kind of right here. So is that what the web page looks like? So
no, that's our website.
So I guess we could, does that a link that probably takes us there? So
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It does. And so then you can go punch in our county and you can see the inspection reports there.
So for those of you who are, really interested to know, you can do that, or you can know that Gina's been taking care of business. And I mean, you respond to calls when people are concerned about that the linkage. And I would guess it's really hard to tell whether you got sick there or someplace else. It's probably hard to track it down.
Yes. So the only way that you can truly find out if you have a foodborne illness, you have to give a fecal sample to the doctor.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. We just moved into a different realm of inspections. Are you going to go beep? There will bleep. Okay, so that's one way that's the only way to really find out. But
we do investigations, and it really made sense that that couple that I told you about, that they probably did get sick at that restaurant.
Right. Well, I think you've helped me understand more about how inspections work, and I really love that you focus on education and not penalizing people. I think it's hard enough to be in the business, and we certainly wouldn't want to affect that, but we still want to maintain safety with our citizens and make sure everybody is in good working order, right? So so again, this is Gina Simpson, and they can call you if they have a problem or any questions, right? So we can go to our website and find out. I'm delighted that you came in today to talk to me about this.
Oh, thank you.
Next time we'll bring some really creepy pictures so we can laugh at them.
And some creepy stories.
Creepy stories. Okay, so stay tuned. So I hope you learned a little bit about what we do here in the county to make sure that you're safe when you go into a food establishment here in Montrose County. I learned something today that I didn't know. Always a delight to sit down with Gina, and she's always ready to help you. So join us next time when we talk about whatever our next subject is. You never know what we're going to talk about at County Talk, boring but important.